What's up, everyone? I'm Jocelyn, and welcome to another episode of Real Talk with the Vagina Doc. In today's episode, I am going to share with you how you can run faster and lift heavier without leaking more or without leaking at all. Before I dive into the three things, I just want to share a quick story with you because it was so eye-opening. I always have these eye-opening moments, and I think that they are so relevant to so many of you in the group, so hopefully it helps. So we're all in the pandemic, and my gym has been closed for over a month now, and we were open a little bit, but it was, I forget the month, it might have been part of the month of June. And even though it was open, it was not, we weren't really doing things that were sharing, that we weren't using the rig as much, like we weren't using the rig to lift, so we weren't lifting heavy. So it wasn't the same, but it was still better than not having it. And then prior to that, I hadn't really been focusing on performance because I was so busy with my life and focusing on other areas of my just healing with my pelvic floor at this given season of my life. So the other day, I have a pretty nice setup for a garage gym. I basically have everything that I would want except a rower or a salt bike or Airdyne bike. And I was lifting on Saturday, and the workout included a barbell clean, a squat clean. So basically I pick the bar up from the ground, I catch it here in a squat. And I had not worked on squat cleans, and I couldn't tell you. It was probably end of last year in December, maybe January. And at that last time, it was last year because there was a guy I was talking to, and I'm not talking to him anymore, and we didn't talk through Christmas. So at that time I was practicing my squat clean because I was feeling so great in the gym as I was going through pelvic floor rehab. And my previous 1 rep max was 135. And so I had finally, when I was with that guy, hit 140. And where I was getting stuck like trying to stand up from the squat. And so once I hit it, I'm like, okay, I'm good. I'm going to take a break and work on different skills. And then I had only from that point, really from an exercise perspective, my goal was maintenance. And when I was exercising, I was also basically videoing, creating content for my business. So obviously I wasn't like being grunt work, trying to hit major milestones. And I was also working on stuff from PT. So biggest thing, my abdominals are so tight. They're always contracted, and my pelvic floor is really, really tight. So when I don't work on it, I could tell, like I don't have pain right now, but I feel stiffness through my hips. I feel just restricted in my breathing, and I feel like I can't move in the gym as well as I want to. Now, if I didn't feel the benefit of, I wouldn't know that wasn't good, or I could feel better if I didn't actually feel better. I had no idea how amazing I could feel. I thought that was just as good as it could get before, but when I actually could move through my pelvic floor, I was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. And my abdominals. And I knew that my abdominals were super tight. So anyways, on Saturday, I was building to a heavy squat clean, and I'm like, what the heck? Why don't I just try to build to a heavy 1 rep max? And so I was at 135, and I didn't even realize it. And meanwhile, I haven't done it in forever. It was at 135, previous 1 rep max, hit it, and I'm like, whoa, was that 115, 125? And it was 135. I'm like, oh my gosh, well, let's put on 5 more pounds. Then I hit the 140 and I'm like, oh my gosh, I failed over and over again when I was with Paul. And this was like nothing. And then I'm like, might as well put 5 more pounds. Was it 145? I was like, might as well put 5 more pounds to hit attempt 150. And did it, hit it, and it was pretty easy. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is crazy. And I had not worked on squat cleans. I had not worked on that kind of strength because I didn't have a rig. I don't have a rig in my garage. So everything that I squat, I have to be able to clean it, or I have to be able to press it to get on to my back. That was insane to me. And I'm like, I haven't worked on strength. I haven't really worked on skill. I haven't worked on any of this, and I just hit this. All I've really been focusing on has been pelvic floor mobility for myself, because everything else I've been basically doing in the gym have been like, okay, I'm gonna kill 2 birds with 1 stone and work out to maintain my health, but then also to help others around me. So the takeaway here is I was able to lift heavier because I focused in the last 6 months on my pelvic floor mobility. And these types of movements would for sure make me leak a year ago. And they didn't. I weigh a little bit heavier now, so I was emaciated and really unhealthy last November. And I'll share a picture with you guys, and I would love to hear what you think. And I think that was unintentional. No, it was definitely unintentional. So I did gain weight. I was under 120, and now I'm like around 125. In 130. My goal is to get to 135. I don't know why, I want to. I feel like I look so unhealthy when I'm really skinny. So anyways, it was all about the pelvic floor mobility. And I mean, I haven't even been eating as well as I could. I'm changing that. But my thing was I was able to lift heavier by not focusing on lifting heavier in my training. So 3 things that I want you to take away from this live or the replay are the following. Number 1, you can run faster and you can lift heavier if you pace your training appropriately. If you are working, let's say, and I'll get into that in a moment. Number 2, whatever you are doing more of right now, do less of that and focus elsewhere. So let's say you're just running. Most of your training is running, or most of your training is weightlifting. Take some of that time away from that specific activity and work elsewhere. And then number 3, practice skill and fundamentals. It's skill and fundamentals. And I'm going to go in now. I'm going to dive deeper into each of those 3 now. So if you're on here live, guys, would you mind and comment live? And if you watch this on the replay, comment replay. And if any comment or questions or takeaways come up, please put them in the comments. Or if there's something you want me to get into in the future, put them in the comments so I know what content to give to you guys or what to teach you. All right, number 1, pace with breathing as it is appropriate to the workout. So let's say your workout or your set is not a 1 rep max. Let's say you're running for over 10 minutes, anything above 10 minutes, or even you're running over continuously for over 5 minutes, or you're in a workout. Hi, Samantha. You're in a workout that your sets are longer than 10 seconds. So you're in a minute and a half before you get rest. Or your workout is going to be a longer workout, 30 minutes, 60 minutes. That means, that timeline means you should be able to deliver oxygen to the tissues that you're using. So therefore, if your breathing is not controlled, you're not going to be able to perform as you want to perform, and you are going to burn out quickly. Therefore, your strategies are going to be such that are going to be more stressful on the pelvic floor, stressful on other areas of your body. I've talked about this in previous videos where people go wrong and they're leaking during running, and it's like not immediately. It's not the problem. The problem isn't often with the pelvic floor. It's the problem is they have their endurance elsewhere is crappy because they've used such crappy strategies. They're just using things, their joints, which don't help the pelvic floor. And so now the pelvic floor has to do a lot more than it should because the other muscles are not performing as they should. And that could be because you're not feeding them the oxygen that they need and they're not being trained as they should around that workout. How do you pace with your breathing? Well, a perfect example would be a workout that has a squat in it. Like you're in control of your breathing. Your breathing isn't in control of you. So what I do, and like today in my workout, we were working out outside. It was rowing. Then it was 10 thrusters where you go into a squat and then you press the bar over your head. There was 10 of those. It was a 100-meter run. And then you got as many meters on a rowing machine as you could. And you had to get from 2,000 meters down to 0. And so that is going to be over a 20-minute workout for most people. And that means I need to breathe. So every thruster, every row pull, when I ran, I was in control of my breathing. And when I got out of control, hi, Jesse, I slowed down because I knew that's where I would put myself at risk for leaking urine. That's where I would get into a pattern where my diaphragm and my pelvic floor were fighting each other. So pacing with a run with breathing is you can have a conversation. You can keep your head and your neck in a good position. You're not like breathing like a dog. And you would be amazed at, if you stick with it, how much better in shape you get. Now, this isn't an overnight thing. In fact, it's going to make the workout a heck of a lot harder at first. I mean, ask if anyone watches this and you've been through any of my programs where it's like breathing, I'm forcing the breath as the primary pacer. You know that it's harder at first. But in the long term, it is absolutely a game changer. So I think, that has made all of the difference in the world for me. And I don't remember the last time I leaked, to be honest. And I used to be a pretty consistent leaker, especially whenever I was mentally when I show you the picture of where I was super skinny, I was leaking all the time. And I didn't even care because I couldn't care at the time. Anyways, so pace with your breathing. You are in control with your breathing. Your breathing is not in control of you. And then make sure the breathing is correct. Like if you're breathing, that's not correct. That's just, that's kind of close to holding your breath, essentially. Number 2, whatever you are currently doing as your primary meat of your fitness, do less of that and more of something else. A lot of you and a lot of women that I know choose default to running because it doesn't require equipment. It doesn't require a facility. It just requires you to put your sneakers on, your clothes on, and go. And I know my patients, some patients that I've treated in the past, they don't want to weight lift because they're afraid it's going to make them bigger. It's not. But anyways, if your main thing is running, you need to take a third of your running and do something else, maybe 50% of your running and do something else. So let's say you run 3 miles every day, and one day potentially you run a little bit further. Or, you could run a mile a day, and then a little bit further would be your 3 miles. That could be, your longer run's 10 miles, but you run 5 miles most days and then 8 miles one day. Regardless of your volume, cut that in a third to half and replace it with training that will support running. So what do you need to run? You need to have in shape lungs and diaphragm. So things that you could be doing are carries, or you could train your breathing just with running. You can do carries with equipment where you're practicing your breathing in the position of where you would be running. What other things do you need to be what other areas do you need to be strong to run strong without leaking? Well, you need to have stable hips and you need to have balance. So if you can't stand on one leg without losing your balance, that's something you need to practice. You need to work on the small muscles around your hips. I'm just going to use this as an example. The Jane Fonda, even though that's incorrect in some regard, depending on the goal, those little movements are key. And when they are strong, your pelvic floor doesn't have to do so much work. If you're weight training, that's your main thing, CrossFit's your main thing, then mobility should be what you're working on elsewhere. So what is mobility? Mobility is the ability to control the full length of motion of a joint. So you have to have flexibility and you have to have muscular control. It's like the whole shebang. And so CrossFit, most of the movements, you are not going through the full mobility in a lot of them. You're just in one plane of where the joint actually moves. Meaning like if your body was a car, you only ever turned left or you only went straight, you never turned. That's how CrossFit is. It's like so one directional. Therefore, you've got to control your joints in other motions, in other planes, and you have to work on both the flexibility component and the control. CrossFitters, you guys, even the elite ones, like the ones that are the games, it's unbelievable how, I don't know if weak is the right way, but lack of control of these tiny movements. It's like they go to, a good way to describe this is they go to pick up an egg and they just like smash it. That's how much effort they're going because that's all they know. That's just an example. So that was kind of me. And I go through seasons of life when I'm better and worse, but I didn't have pelvic floor mobility. I was strong, but I was so restricted in that how much length I could actually use. So it was like, it wasn't bouncy. It was kind of like I was trying to play basketball, but every time I went to bounce, the basketball just stuck to the floor because there was no bounce to this. In this case, it'd be the basketball, but the pelvic floor would be the floor in this case, but I can't think of an example. Yeah, so some of you have that problem. Some of you have the opposite, is that there's just no reactive response in the pelvic floor, so you have to work on that. But do you have to work on it through pelvic floor contractions? Maybe not. It might have to be like you have to work on control with bouncing, jumping, breathing, turning. It's super sciencey and geeky, but it can get really simple if we just focus on it, or if you just focus on it. So for me, I had two things that I did. I regularly did it, and I did direct pelvic floor mobility my focus in that umbrella would be stretching, direct stretching. So I actually did stretch myself internally. And then I did indirect, which I use my hips to indirectly stretch the pelvic floor. And if you're already doing that, if you only have a few stretches, that's probably the problem. You have to have many because the pelvic floor muscles are shaped like a bowl. And so if you just stretch one direction, you're only stretching one direction of the pelvic floor muscles. You need to hit all of them because they go in all different directions. So you have to maximize, you have to stretch in all these different directions. And you have to breathe well while you do that. Last, skills and fundamentals. That thought, whoever told us that we were born to run, we don't need, that we should be able to do these things. We should be able to move. They forgot to mention, and I know that they realize this, they forgot to mention that the way our society has evolved has pulled us away from our natural state. We were not, many hundreds, thousands, whatever, years ago, we were not sitting on computers, we were not texting, we were not driving cars to 2 blocks, we weren't riding electric scooters, we were to the bars. That just wasn't the way it was. So the way that the world is now is that why my computer, it wasn't charging. The way our world was and the way it is now is kind of pulling us away from our natural state. So we have to train it to back to that state. And so you have to train to walk well. You have to train to run well. You have to train to throw something overhead. And it doesn't happen, instantly. I remember starting CrossFit when I was a PT student. This was in 2016. And I expected to be able to throw the weight around that these girls that were doing CrossFit for 4+ years were throwing around. It wasn't until now that I've really seen a huge jump in just my execution, because I had spent time respecting the sport and practicing the skills. So I know that the urgency, especially after having a baby, is to lose weight, get fit, get back. But in reality, guys, jumping to those HIIT classes, you're building a hollow shell. You're not building a solid foundation. So your fitness is going to go up quick, but then you're going to plateau and then dip. And a lot of people crash at about age 44 to 47 as they go through those hormonal changes, because their body just can't sustain that. And some women crash earlier. Now, those that are building a foundation and that eat well, eat enough, don't eat too much, eat good stuff, take care of their mind, take care of their relationships, they get away with it a lot of times because, their body functions as it should. But those that are not doing those things and are trying to get back to these high levels of fitness without going through the fundamentals, the skills, end up crashing at some point. So it's not sexy to do work that is slow, that you're working on your breathing. You might even be using lighter weight. However, you are going to get the body you desire much quicker. And it's just going to be like this. You're not going to plateau. As soon as I made that decision to take care and honor my body, I have been on this slow trajectory up. Now, it's not rapid, it's slow, but it's always wins. And so think of it that way. I love group fitness, but use the group fitness class to work on your mental toughness and fortitude of stick with the foundations. You got to stick with your intent. So if you're early, you got to master your breathing through the workouts. You got to master the technique first. Then you get to do the fancy stuff. And sometimes it requires to do outside work. Oftentimes it does, 60 minutes. A 60-minute class may not have all the things. I know my CrossFit class doesn't. Yeah, it gives me a great, it kicks my butt, but I know I have to do things on my own. So that's what I got for you. In summary, we got pace with your breathing. Whatever you are currently doing, the majority of, do a third to half less and do other things. And the third is work on the skill and the fundamentals. That, my friends, will be the key ingredients to be able to lift heavier and run faster without leakage or with a significantly less amount than you're currently experiencing. So I've been in the last several months, I'm oh my gosh, how can this just isn't a thing out there, you guys. And it's a really complex, so I've been working on a way with my current, I have a group of girls that have been going through all my stuff, and they've been just killing it. But they are just the type of people that are absolutely stellar in everything. And it's not realistic to expect that everyone has that time or that kind of discipline right off the bat. And I'm well, how can I deliver this to the world that in bite-sized amounts that they can optimally learn and apply to their life instantly? And so I have and it's motivating because this stuff isn't sexy. I get it. It's not sexy. It is eventually, when you process like, oh my God, my sex life is so much better. I'm so much more fit. It is sexy in that regard, but it's not sexy in face value at first. And so I was like, well, how can I make it motivating? And myself and my team have developed this super cool challenge that it's not too long, because I've done those challenges, those ones that are like 30 plus days. And I'm like, I am bored, or this is just like too much. It's less than that. The trainings are short. It goes from like, okay, here's the why, here's what you do, how you do it, and then here is the exact workout that you are going to do to improve this. So look out for that. I'm super excited about it. It has been my brainchild the last several weeks, several months, trying to like package or like reformulate my current system into something that anyone, no matter if you're a mom, no matter if you want to be a mom and have the most empowered birth and pregnancy and healing afterward, or if you are someone that is down the road after having kids and you're just like, I want to do better. I want to honor myself. I want to feel what Jocelyn's feeling. I want to drink her sauce, because I'm telling you guys, what I'm drinking works. And I feel so freaking amazing. And I had no idea. And I'm a pelvic floor physical therapist. So yeah, that is coming in the works. It's not ready to launch yet, but I just wanted to put that out there. And if you have any questions or you want to hear more and get super excited about it, some of you reached out to me, feel free to send me a message, and I can tell you about it, because I know some of you asked to work with me, and I'm like, just hang tight, because I think this is a great entrance point. And then once you get through this, then we can really dive into the meat after, because we got to set the foundations first. That's all I got for you guys. I hope you have a wonderful Tuesday, and think about some of these things and how you can implement. If you had to take away, please put them in the comments, and I'll see you on Thursday on Real Talk with Vagina Docs at 7:30 a.m. Pacific Standard Time right here. Have a great one. See you guys later.